The sky above the rust planet was always gray. Acid rain fell from the clouds like sharp tears, cutting across the metal junk that covered the land. The wind screamed through broken starship parts and rusted-out buildings. It was a graveyard. For machines and for unwanted lives. In the middle of this graveyard sat a wheelchair, and in that wheelchair sat a girl. Her skin was soft, violet, her eyes dull and empty. Her body looked too thin, like she hadn't eaten in days. Her legs, once strong, were now metal, half broken and cracked. Wires dangled from her knees. The wheels of her chair were covered in mud, stuck deep in the wet ground. She could not move. Her name was Rilla. Once Rilla had been proud. She was the daughter of a royal alien bloodline, trained in science and battle. But all of that ended when her ship crashed. Her spine was shattered. Her legs had to be replaced with cheap cybernetics. Her people called her broken, weak, shameful, so they left her here alone, a world where even machines came to die. She didn't cry. There were no tears left. The acid rain burned her skin, but she didn't flinch. Her head hung low. Every breath she took felt like a fight. She had stopped hoping, but fate was not finished with her yet. Footsteps splashed in the mud behind her. She didn't look up. She thought it was another scavenger come to laugh at her, or maybe steal parts from her body. Let them, she thought. She had nothing left to give, but then a voice spoke. It was soft, warm. "Male, are you okay?" Rilla blinked. Slowly, that wasn't a voice she expected. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't cold. It sounded human. She lifted her head just a little, enough to see a man crouched in front of her. He looked nothing like her. He had brown skin, short dark hair, and a beard. He wore a soaked shirt and cargo shorts, and he had mud up to his knees. His arms were strong, marked with faded tattoos. His eyes were kind. "I said," he repeated gently. "Are you okay?" Rilla stared at him, confused. "No," she said. Her voice was rough, dry. "I am not okay." The man nodded, like he understood. "My name's Jack," he said. "Let me help you." She laughed weakly, her voice shaking. "Help me." "I'm not worth helping." Jack tilted his head. "Who told you that?" She looked down at her legs. The broken cybernetics buzzed and sparked in the rain. "Everyone." Jack stood up and looked around. "Well, everyone's wrong." Before she could answer, he stepped behind her and grabbed the handles of her wheelchair. "What are you doing?" she asked quickly. "Getting you out of this mess." Jack said. The wheels were deep in the mud, but he pushed with all his strength. His boots slipped and he grunted, but he didn't stop. Inch by inch, the chair moved. Rilla's eyes widened. No one had tried to help her in weeks, maybe months. "You don't even know me," she whispered. Jack smiled, breathless. "I know." Enough. As he pulled her free from the thickest mud, the acid rain kept falling. His arms burned, but he ignored the pain. The girl in the chair, this broken, forgotten alien, was the only thing that mattered now. "I have a camp not far from here," he told her. "Warm, dry, some food too." "I can't pay you," she said flatly. Jack chuckled. "I'm not asking for payment." "Then why?" she asked, voice trembling. He paused. "Because you don't leave someone behind, just because they're hurt." For a moment, silence hung between them, just the sound of rain and rusted metal. Rilla looked away. Her lip trembled. She didn't want to cry. Jack kept walking, pushing her through the rain. She didn't know why this human cared. She didn't know if she could trust him. But for the first time in a long, long time, she hoped. The sky was still crying acid when Jack pushed Rilla's chair over the muddy ridge. Each step was a struggle. The ground was slick, filled with rusted ship parts and broken wires that curled like dead snakes. Rilla said nothing. Her hands rested in her lap. She didn't know where they were going, but for some reason, she didn't feel scared. Not yet. Almost there, Jack grunted, wiping rain from his face. Rilla blinked up at him. "Why are you helping me?" Jack didn't answer right away. He just kept pushing. Finally, they reached a half-buried freighter hull at the edge of the junk field. The metal walls were dented and old, but not falling apart. Jack stepped on a loose panel, and it opened like a door. Warm, dry air touched Rilla's cold skin. Inside was a simple shelter. A portable heater buzzed in one corner. Blankets lay. On crates, tools and wires were neatly stacked. In the center, a long workbench glowed under a hanging light. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe. "Home sweet home," Jack said, wheeling her inside. Rilla looked around slowly. "This is yours?" Jack shrugged. "Found it, fixed it, claimed it." He pulled a dry blanket and wrapped it around her. Her skin shivered at the warmth. She couldn't remember the last time she wasn't soaked or freezing. Jack poured her a cup of thick, warm liquid. It smelled like herbs and something sweet. "Drink." She took it. Her metal fingers were shaky, but she managed. The first sip brought tears to her eyes. Not because it was hot, but because it was kind. "You're not afraid of me," she said quietly. Jack sat across from her, arms crossed. "Why should I be? My kind left me to die," she whispered. "They said I was useless. A burden." Trash Jack's eyes hardened. "Then they're fools." Suddenly, a loud knock echoed from the outside metal. Jack's body stiffened. Rilla flinched. "Stay here," he said, grabbing a metal rod from beside the door. He opened the door a crack. 3 figures stood in the rain scavengers. Not human. Not her species. Just bottom feeders always hunting for parts. Their faces were hidden behind masks. One had a plasma torch. Another had a scanner. Jack stepped out and shut the door behind him. "What do you want?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. The lead scavengers stepped forward. "Saw you dragging something through the mud. Thought you might have found tech." Jack didn't blink. No tech. Just helping someone. Another laughed. "We scanned it." "That's no someone. That's a broken hybrid. Worthless." The third one sneered. "Those limbs, she has cheap prosthetics, but the spinal core might be worth some credits, dead or alive." Jack's jaw tightened. "She's not for sale. She's just scrap metal." Jack gripped the rod tighter. "Say that again?" The one with the torch stepped closer. "Easy, human. We'll take her off your hands. She'll slow you down anyway." The torch ignited, but Jack didn't move back. Instead, he swung the rod so fast it cracked across the man's helmet, sending him spinning. The second scavenger raised his gun, but Jack kicked a piece of metal into his knee, dropping him. The third tried to run. Jack stood in the rain, chest heaving. Next time, he growled, "Bring an army." They ran inside. Rilla had heard everything when Jack came back, soaked again, bruised but standing tall. She stared at him. "You fought for me. Of course, you could have let them take me." "I don't abandon people," Jack said simply, "especially not the ones the galaxy throws away." Rilla lowered her head. "I don't understand you." "You don't have to," he smiled. "You just have to eat, rest, and let me fix those legs." She looked down at her cracked limbs. "They can't be fixed." Jack grinned. "Wanna bet?" He walked to the workbench and picked up tools. "Let's start with the joints." Rilla hesitated, then nodded as Jack worked on her legs, cleaning wires, replacing bolts, stabilizing motors. She watched him closely. No one had ever looked at her this way, not with pity, but with focus. With respect. She didn't know what would happen tomorrow. Maybe the scavengers would return. Maybe her people would find her. Maybe everything would fall apart again. But for now, someone had chosen her, and for the first time in her broken life, she believed she might be worth saving. The rain had stopped. Outside the rusted freighter, the storm left behind a misty silence. Inside, the warm glow from the heater filled the small space, chasing away the cold that had made a home in Rila's bones for far too long. Jack stood at the counter, stirring something in a metal pot over a portable cooker. It smelled simple, but good earth spices, dried root vegetables, and something soft that steamed when broken. Rila didn't speak. She sat quietly, watching. No one had cooked for her since the accident. No one had stayed. Jack turned around and smiled. "Hope you're hungry." Rila hesitated. "I don't eat much anymore." "You do now," he said. Placing a hot bowl in front of her, her mechanical fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the spoon. The warmth from the food rose to her face. She took a bite. Her eyes widened. It was soft, rich. It melted in her mouth. A strange sound escaped her throat. A soft, almost shy hum. Jack chuckled. "That good?" She nodded, still chewing. He sat across from her with his own bowl, eating slowly. For a while, they didn't talk. They just ate. And in that silence, something gentle passed between them, something Rila hadn't felt in so long. She almost didn't recognize it. Peace after dinner. Jack brought out a roll-up mattress and laid it on a raised platform in the corner. He handed her a fresh blanket, soft and thick. "You take the bed," he said. "No," she replied quickly. "I can stay in the chair." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You'll freeze." "I've slept worse." "I know," he said quietly. "That's why you won't tonight." Rila opened her mouth to argue but stopped. Her shoulders lowered. She nodded. Jack lifted her gently. She flinched at first, not used to being touched. But his hands were steady, respectful. He placed her on the mattress, tucked the blanket around her legs, and backed away. She stared up at the metal ceiling. "This feels strange," she said, "sleeping in a bed. Being treated like a person." Jack looked at her. "You are a person." Her voice dropped. "Not to them. To me," he said. "You always will be." She closed her eyes, blinking fast. Jack walked to the far corner and lay down on the floor with his own blanket. He turned off the main light, leaving only the small heater's glow. The silence returned, but this time, it wasn't empty. Jack Rila whispered, "Yeah, you risked your life today." He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "So, did you just by surviving this long?" Rila stared at the ceiling. "Before the accident, I was a lead navigator. I flew ships through black holes, gravity wells, dangerous storms. I was strong, respected." Jack didn't interrupt. "Then, one mistake," she said. "One hit, one crash, and I became this." She touched her legs gently. "My own kind said I was defective, unclean. I was placed in the scrapyard, like broken cargo." Jack sat up on his elbow. "But you're still here." "I didn't want to be." Her voice trembled. "There were nights I begged the cold to take me." Jack stood and walked slowly toward her. He knelt beside the bed, his face soft in the dim light. "You don't have to beg anymore," he said. "Not the cold, not anyone." She looked into his eyes, human, yes, but filled with something no species could fake. Understanding, care. "You really believe I can be something again?" she asked. Jack smiled gently. "I don't believe it. I see it." For a moment, her breath caught. She turned away, but he caught a glimpse of her blinking fast. Jack stood. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow we work on those legs." Rila turned back. "You think they can work again?" "With the right tools, yes," Jack said. But that's not the most important part. What is? That you believe it too. She said nothing, but inside her heart, a tiny spark flickered small, shy but real. Hope. That night, Rilla slept, not in fear, not in pain, but wrapped in warmth. The dreams that came were strange and soft. She dreamed of stars she hadn't seen in years, and of a man who saw her not as a burden, but as a being worth saving. And for the first time in a long, long time, she wanted to wake up. The next morning came slowly. Faint sunlight passed through the cracks in the freighter's metal walls. The world outside was still wet and muddy, but inside, the air felt warmer, less like a prison, and more like something close to home. Rilla opened her eyes. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The soft bed beneath her, the gentle heat, the silence without fear, all felt like a dream. Then she turned her head and saw Jack asleep in the corner, curled up with a blanket over his shoulders and a small toolkit beside him. He looked peaceful, safe. She let out a soft breath. She was still here, and for the first time. She was glad. When Jack woke, he smiled at her. Morning, Rilla nodded. Did you sleep well? He stretched. Better than most nights She paused. I didn't have nightmares. Jack looked at her kindly. Good. That means we're doing something right. After a quick breakfast, simple bread and dried fruits, Jack rolled her wheelchair near the workbench. All right, he said, rubbing his hands together. Let's get these legs moving. Rilla blinked. You really think it's possible? I know it's possible, Jack said confidently. You have tech from your people's military grade. Most of it's still working. The rest, well, I've got spare parts. She looked down at her legs. They haven't worked in years. He crouched next to her, and today might be the first step back. He grabbed his tools and got to work. He moved carefully, always, explaining what he was doing, fixing a joint, replacing a cracked wire, realigning the neural interface near her hips. Rilla watched closely. She was used to pain, but this was different. This was healing. You're skilled, she said softly. Jack grinned. Used to repair ships, legs aren't that different. Just more attitude. Rilla chuckled dumbly slightly. It was a quiet sound, short and strange on her lips. It surprised even her. Jack looked up. Was that a laugh? I think it was, she said, almost confused. Jack raised his eyebrows. Careful, you'll break the rust in your smile. She shook her head, but couldn't stop the small grin from forming. I didn't know I could still do that, she whispered. You've been through hell, Rilla, but you're still here. That means there's still life, and life needs moments to smile. She looked away, blinking fast. Jack didn't push further. He just returned to fixing. Hours passed. Jack worked through lunch, adjusting the knee motors and tightening the foot actuators. Occasionally, sparks flew, but he never stopped. Rilla helped when she could, holding wires, connecting plugs with her still working arms. You're a fast learner, Jack said, surprised. I was trained in ship mechanics before I became a navigator, she replied. He smirked. No wonder. You're my favorite alien. She gave him a soft glare. I'm your only alien. Still counts. That made her laugh again. At this time, it didn't feel so strange. By late afternoon, Jack leaned back and wiped sweat from his forehead. All right, he said. Time to test. Rilla froze. Test. You'll try to stand. Her eyes widened. Now, Jack nodded. I've repaired all core joints. You won't run marathons yet, but you might stand. Maybe even take a step. Rilla stared at her legs. For so long, they had been dead weight, part of her body, yet not hers. She didn't want to hope, but she did. Jack crouched beside her, adjusting the control module at her side. Ready? No, she whispered. But let's try anyway. Jack placed his hands on her waist. "I've got you." With his help, she pressed her hands on the armrests. The motors in her legs buzzed, then hummed, then clicked into motion. Her body trembled. Her legs wobbled, and slowly, with Jack's steady grip guiding her. She stood. She was standing. Rilla gasped, her eyes wide. She felt taller. Again, she felt real again. I'm standing," she breathed. Jack's eyes were proud. "Told you." Still something left in those legs. She looked down at him, tears pooling in her violet eyes. "You gave this back to me." "Tony didn't give it," Jack said gently. "You took it. I just helped." She couldn't stop the tears now. They rolled silently down her cheeks. He helped her sit again before the legs gave out. She was still weak, but something deep inside her was no longer broken. Not completely. Jack handed her a cloth. Next step, walking. Rilla wiped her face. One day at a time. That night, they shared a quiet meal again. This time, her smile came easier as she lay in bed, Jack at his corner. Rilla looked up at the stars through a crack in the ceiling. She didn't feel forgotten anymore. She felt seen, and for the first time since her crash. She dreamed not of the past but of the future. 3 days had passed since Rilla stood on her legs again. Each day she practiced. Just a few steps at first, wobbly, slow, but real. Jack stayed beside her, always ready to catch her if she fell. He never laughed when she stumbled. He only smiled and said, "That was farther than yesterday." And each night they sat together. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they shared old stories. Sometimes they just watched the fire flicker against the freighter walls. Letting the silence speak, Rilla had begun to feel something. Dangerous, safe, but peace never lasted long on the Rust planet. It began with a sound distant at first, a deep hum in the ground like thunder trapped under metal. Jack looked up from his workbench. Rilla froze, her fingers still wrapped around the cup of warm tea he'd made. "That's not a storm," she said. Jack stood and walked to the crack in the metal wall. He looked out. A dark, sleek ship was lowering slowly onto the edge of the junk field. It didn't look like a scavenger ship. It was too advanced, too clean, too sharp. He turned to her. "You recognize it?" Rilla's face had gone pale. "Yes." "Is it?" "My people." Jack frowned. "I thought they abandoned you." "They did," she whispered. "But if they found out I survived, they might come to finish what they started." Jack's voice grew serious. "Why?" She looked down at her hands. "Because I know things. Military secrets, gate coordinates, hidden colonies. I was never supposed to survive that crash. If I'm alive, I'm a risk." Jack didn't ask. More, he didn't need to. Outside, the humming stopped. A door hissed open on the alien ship. 3 figures stepped out, tall, armored, and moving with purpose. Their suits were black and silver. Their helmets glowed red. Each carried a pulse. Weapons strapped across their back. "They sent silencers," Rilla said, her voice hollow. "They're not here to talk." Jack turned to her. "Then we have a choice. Run or fight." Rilla looked toward her half-repaired legs. "I can't run." Jack nodded slowly. "Then we don't run." He pulled a dusty crate from under his bed. Inside was a compact rifle, old but clean. He checked the power cell and chambered a charge. Then he handed Rilla a small device. "What is this?" she asked. "Portable jammer. Blocks their tracking for a few minutes. Hide under the floor panel near the heater. Shielded. But what about you?" "I'm not the one they're after." She grabbed his arm. "You'll die if you face them alone." Jack looked at her firm, steady. "Then it's better I die standing than you die hiding." Something in her snapped. The old warrior inside Hertha, one buried under pain and rejection, rose like fire. "No," she said. "We face them together." Jack blinked. "You can't." "Stand yet," he reminded her. She looked down. Then, slowly, painfully, she rose. Her cybernetic legs whirred and clicked, shaking. But they held. Jack's eyes widened. "You sure?" "No," she said. "But let's try anyway." The two of them stood by the door of the freighter as the three soldiers closed in. They moved like shadows, silent, precise. "Deadly Dot," one of them spoke. "Rilla of the Starborn class, you are considered compromised. Surrender and be erased. Do not resist." Jack stepped in front of her. "She's not going anywhere." The soldiers raised their weapons. "Step aside, human. This does not concern your kind." Jack raised his rifle. "It does now." There was a moment of stillness, like time holding its breath. Then everything moved at once. The first pulse beam shot across the field, grazing the freighter wall. Jack fired back, forcing them to spread out. Rilla moved to the side, her legs struggling to keep up, but her mind sharp. She found cover and grabbed a nearby scrap blade. Jack had shaped for her practice. One soldier leaped through the air, but she struck first, knocking him down. Her blade cut through his suit just enough to slow him. Jack slammed another with the stock of his rifle, dodging return fire. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't clean, but together. They fought not as savior and saved, but as partners. The last soldier, bleeding and limping, looked at Rilla's wide in disbelief. "You were supposed to be broken." Rilla stood tall. "I was, but now I'm standing. And I'm not alone." With one final strike, Jack disarmed the last attacker and kicked him into the mud. The silence returned. Only this time, Mitt was theirs. Later, as they stood over the fallen enemies, Rilla turned to Jack. "You didn't have to fight for me." He shook his head. "You're wrong." "Why?" "Because you've been fighting for yourself all along," he said. "I was just finally here to fight beside you." She smiled, tired, bruised, but proud. And it wasn't the kind of smile that fades. It was the kind that lasts. The bodies of the alien soldiers lay still under the rust-colored sky. Smoke from a shattered pulse rifle drifted into the air, mixing with the quiet hum of distant scrapyard wind. Jack stood beside Rilla, both breathing hard, dirt and dried blood streaking their skin. But they were alive together. Ryla looked down at her cybernetic legs. They were still buzzing, damaged, yes, but working. Her balance wasn't perfect, but her stance had weight now. She could feel the ground under her feet. She could stand. And not just with Jack holding her. On her own, Jack walked to her side and gently touched her arm. "You okay?" She gave a small nod. "More okay than I've been in years." Jack smiled. "You stood through a battle. That's no small thing." Rilla turned to the wrecked armor of the soldiers. "They'll send more, probably," Jack said. "But we'll be ready." She narrowed her eyes. "No, I'll be ready." That night, while Jack was repairing the outer wall of the freighter, Rilla sat by the workbench, staring at a cracked reflection in a piece of metal. She didn't look like a commander. She looked like a survivor. And yet, the spark in her eyes had returned. She began to open up the control panels on her own legs, rewiring, reconfiguring. Her fingers worked fast, with memory and purpose. Her mind was sharp again, focused. Jack watched from the corner of his eye and said nothing. He just smiled. The next morning, she walked 5 full steps without falling. By evening, she walked the length of the freighter. Jack clapped softly. "Told you. Nothing's impossible." Rilla looked at him. "I used to believe that. Then I got thrown away. But now?" he asked. "Now?" she said slowly. I believe again. They sat near the fire after dinner. The stars above blinked. Through the open top hatch, Jack poked the fire with a stick. You never told me what you were doing before the crash? Rilla looked up. I was part of the Navigation Council, elite training, black hole paths, strategic wormholes. My mind was my strongest weapon. And now? She gave him a sideways smile. Now my legs are slowly catching up. Jack laughed. I like that. She looked at him, her voice softer. Why did you help me, Jack? Really? Jack stared at the fire for a long time. I lost someone once, he said finally. My little sister. She was born with a bone condition. Couldn't walk. We were in a refugee zone after a war. Food was short. Medicine was worse. No one helped her. No one cared. Rilla's heart sank. What happened to her? She got a fever. Never woke up. Rilla said nothing. Her chest ached not from pain, but from something heavier. So when you saw me, I saw someone everyone else threw away. Like her. But this time, I could do something. She reached out and placed her hand gently over his. Thank you. She whispered. He looked at her, surprised. No one's ever said that and meant it, she added. Jack nodded. You don't need to thank me. Just promise me something. What? When? You're strong enough. Don't hide. Don't run. Be you again. She held his gaze. I will. The next few days were filled with training. Jack taught her how to fire a rifle properly, how to stabilize her aim using the strength of her upper body. In return, Rilla taught him alien tech, how to reprogram defense drones, how to bypass security locks, how to upgrade the shield emitter. In the freighter, they made a good team, and every evening, when the sun faded and the air grew cool, they sat under the stars, not as human and alien, not as broken and whole, but as two people finding something rare in a galaxy that often gave none of it. Trust. Then one evening, something changed. Jack came inside carrying a small, blinking device in his hand. Rilla frowned. What is it? A tracker, Jack said. I found it buried near the freighter. Someone placed it during the last attack. Rilla stood up fast. They've been watching, or someone else is coming. Her heart began to race. We need to leave. Jack shook his head. No. We prepare. Rilla stepped toward him. You're still risking your life for me, he smiled. You're not just someone I'm protecting anymore, Rilla. What am I then? Jack paused, then answered simply, my reason to fight. Her breath caught. The silence between them was loud. Not uncomfortable, just full. Of things they hadn't said, of things they were starting to feel, and then she spoke. When this is over, will you still stay by my side? Jack didn't hesitate. Yes. That night, while they set up defenses and checked their weapons, the stars above them burned brighter than ever. Rilla wasn't just surviving anymore. She was fighting, and she wasn't fighting alone. The final ship came at sunrise. It wasn't like the last one, small and silent. This one was massive, casting a long shadow over the junk lens. Smooth black metal. Gold markings that shimmered in the light. It hovered above the ground like a quiet god, waiting. Rilla and Jack stood outside the freighter. Side by side, weapons slung but not raised. They're not here to kill you, Jack said quietly, reading the ship's movements. No, Rilla agreed. They're here to make an offer. The ship opened its gates slowly. A platform lowered to the ground, and from it stepped three tall aliens in elegant robes. They didn't carry weapons. Their eyes were sharp, cold, and calculating. These were high-ranking officials, decision-makers, politicians. The one in the center stepped forward. She was older than Rilla, her skin darker, her posture perfect. Rilla of the Starborn class, the woman said. You live. Rilla didn't answer. You were listed as lost. The woman continued. Now we hear stories of a warrior who stood against our silencers. Who walks again? Who fights beside a human? Still, Rilla said nothing. The official continued. We were wrong to cast you out. We'll offer you your place back. A command seat, resources, respect. Jack's grip on his weapon tightened but Rilla placed her hand gently on his arm. She stepped forward. No, she said. The three aliens flinched. I don't want your respect, she said. I don't want your seat. I know what that respect costs. I know what happens to those you call damaged. You would turn away from your own people. The older alien asked, voice sharp. Rilla turned to Jack, then back to them. I'm not turning away. I've just found where I truly belong. And where is that? The official demanded. With the one who saw me when I was nothing, Rilla said calmly. With the one who stayed. She walked back to Jack. The three aliens looked at each. Other. One stepped forward, voice colder now. You're rejecting your bloodline for him. Yes, Rilla said. He is nothing. He is human. And yet, Rilla said, he was the only one who reached for me when I was broken, bleeding, and forgotten. That makes him everything. Silence. The lead official sighed. So be it. You are no longer Starborn. You are no longer ours. Rilla smiled. You made that choice years ago. The officials returned to their ship. The platform rose, the gates closed. The great vessel turned and vanished into the sky without another word. Jack let out a breath. Well, that went better than expected. Rilla laughed softly. You were ready to shoot them. I was ready to not let them take you. She looked at him, her face quiet but soft. You've given me more than my legs, Jack. You gave me the strength to choose myself. He shrugged. I just gave you a warm meal and tools. She stepped closer. You gave me a future. Jack swallowed, his voice lower now. And what does your future look like? Rilla smiled. Messy. Uncertain. Maybe with a few angry bounty hunters. But I'd like you in it. Jack stared at her, stunned. You mean that? Yes. They stood in silence for a moment, the wind brushing past them. Warm and calm for once. I was alone for a long time. Jack, Rilla said. I was thrown away. I hated myself. I hated my body. I thought no one would ever look at me without seeing a mistake. Jack took her hand gently. I don't see a mistake. I see a miracle. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from something far more powerful, hope, love. Weeks passed. The freighter was fully repaired, upgraded with alien tech and Jack's old hardware tricks. They named it Second Chance. Fitting Rilla walked freely now. Her cybernetic legs moved with strength and grace. She even added her own upgrades, built-in stabilizers, shock absorbers, and a hidden blade Jack had no idea existed. Jack and Rilla became known across the outer sectors as a strange but powerful team, part mechanics, part protectors. They helped injured refugees, rebuilt lost tech, and defended those with nowhere else to turn. One day, while working on a crashed trader ship, a young alien girl, limping, injured, terrified, stared up at Rilla and asked, Are you a warrior? Rilla knelt down, smiled, and answered, I was broken once, but now I fight for people like you. Later that night, back in the freighter, Jack leaned on the doorway, watching her recharge her legs at the station. You know, he said, you never gave me an official title. Rilla looked up. Like what? Like partner, co-pilot. Something less awkward than the human. She smiled. How about bondmate? Jack blinked. Is that your way of asking me something? Maybe. He walked up to her. "Then, I accept." They kissed under the quiet hum of the ship, two souls from different stars, but now one path. Not just a bond. A future. Together.